In this story, you will learn how a monk faces life's problems, not by fighting them, but by understanding them. Through 21 different struggles, you'll discover calm ways to deal with fear, anger, confusion, and pain. These lessons won't give you answers. They'll change how you see your problems. And if there's a struggle you want me to turn into a story, write it in the comments.
How a monk solves life's problems. 21 lessons from a silent master. The arrival. The path wound upward through ancient pines, their branches heavy with morning mist. Each step took the traveler farther from the noise that had consumed his days. The endless demands, the racing thoughts, the weight of problems that multiplied faster than he could solve them. His name was June, and he had carried his burdens up this mountain like stones in a sack. Sleepless nights, broken relationships, decisions that paralyzed him, a mind that never stopped circling the same fears, the same regrets, the same impossible questions. At the gates of the monastery, a single monk swept fallen leaves. The old man moved slowly, each stroke of his broom deliberate, unhurried. His face held the deep lines of someone who had seen many seasons, yet his eyes were clear as still water. June approached and bowed. "Master, I have come seeking wisdom." The monk continued sweeping. "I am drowning in problems," June continued. "Every day brings new troubles. I try to solve them, but they multiply. How do you solve your problems?" The monk paused, leaning on his broom. He looked at June for a long moment, then spoke in a voice like wind through bamboo. "I do not solve them. I see them clearly." June frowned. "But surely you face difficulties? How do you deal with them?" "Come," the monk said simply. "Sit with me for 21 days. Watch, listen. Perhaps you will understand." Lesson 1: The Weight of Worry. On the first morning, June sat with the monk in the meditation hall. Before they began, June spoke what pressed most heavily on his heart. "Master, I worry constantly. About money, about the future, about whether I've made the right choices. The worries pile up until I can barely breathe. What do I do with all this worry?" The monk rose without speaking. He walked to the corner of the hall where a large water jar stood. He lifted it, clearly heavy, and carried it to the center of the room. Then he simply held it, arms extended, face calm. Minutes passed. The jar did not move. The monk's arms began to tremble slightly, but still he held. June watched, confused. 5 minutes became 10. The monk's breathing remained steady despite the obvious strain. Finally, the monk set the jar down gently. He looked at June. "Tell me, was the jar heavy?" "Of course," June said. "Your arms were shaking. For how long did I hold it? Perhaps 10 minutes. And if I held it for 1 hour? Your arms would be in terrible pain. And if I held it for an entire day? Master, you could not. Your arms would fail. You would collapse." The monk nodded. The jar's weight did not change. What changed was how long I insisted on carrying it. He paused. "Your worries are like this jar. They are not too heavy because of what they contain. They are too heavy because you never set them down." June felt something shift in his chest. "But how do I set them down?" he asked. "You are already holding them. That is the only action happening. To set them down requires no technique. Simply stop holding." The monk returned to his cushion and closed his eyes. The teaching was complete. June sat with this. His mind wanted to argue, to ask for steps, for methods. But in the silence, he felt his shoulders relax slightly. Just slightly, as if some part of him had heard. The mind creates weight through duration. Worry is not heavy because it matters, but because we refuse to release it. Lesson 2: The Burning Anger. On the second day, June's frustration surfaced. He spoke of his neighbor who had wronged him, of colleagues who took credit for his work, of every injustice that had lit fires in his chest. "Master, I am so angry. These people have hurt me, disrespected me. The anger burns constantly. How do I make it stop?" The monk listened, then stood. He led June outside to where a small fire burned in a stone pit, used for burning offerings and old papers. The monk picked up a stick and held its end in the flames until it caught fire. Then he simply held it. The flames consumed the wood, crept closer to his hand. June watched with growing alarm. The fire was moving toward the monk's fingers. "Master, drop it. You'll be burned." The monk held it a moment longer, then calmly dropped the burning stick back into the fire pit. He turned to June. "Was it the fire's fault that it burned toward my hand?" June shook his head. "No, master. Fire is just fire. It was you holding the stick." "Yes," the monk said. "Anger is like this. The person who wronged you dropped the burning stick long ago, but you picked it up. Now you hold it. You watch it burn closer and closer to your hand. And you ask me how to stop the burning." "But they started it," June protested. "They caused this. They lit a stick and dropped it. Whether it continues to burn you depends entirely on your hand." The monk brushed ash from his robe and walked back inside. June stood by the fire pit, staring at the flames. He thought of all the anger he'd carried, all the mental conversations where he told people what they'd done wrong, refined his arguments, nursed his wounds. His hands were empty, yet they ached. Anger burns the one who carries it. The match was struck by another, but the hand that holds the flame makes the choice to burn. Lesson 3: The paralysis of choice. The third day brought rain. June and the monk sat in the covered walkway, watching water fall from the temple eaves. "Master," June said, "I cannot make decisions. Every choice feels enormous. What if I choose wrong? What if there was a better path? I stand frozen between options until life decides for me." The monk pointed to the rain falling from the roof. "Watch the water." June watched. Each drop fell from the same edge of the roof. None hesitated. None hung there, weighing whether to fall left or right, whether this was the perfect moment. They simply fell. "You see the drops that fall," the monk said. "Do you see the drops that did not fall?" "What do you mean?" "There are no drops that didn't fall. No drops hanging forever in indecision. No drops that weighed every consequence before letting go." "But drops don't think," June said. "I have to think about my choices." "Yes," the monk agreed. "You think about them, then you think about thinking about them, then you think about how you thought about them. Meanwhile, the moment for choosing has passed. Not because you chose wrong, but because you chose nothing." The monk held out his palm, catching several raindrops. Each drop falls once. It does not fall again to see if it made the right choice. It does not hover, asking the universe for a sign. It follows its nature, which is to fall, and in falling, it joins the stream. He closed his hand, then opened it. The water was gone. Your indecision is not wisdom. It is fear dressed as carefulness. The drops teach us. Movement itself reveals the path. Standing still reveals nothing. June felt the truth of this in his body. How many opportunities had passed while he deliberated? How many paths had closed not because he chose poorly, but because he refused to choose? Perfection is not found before the choice. It is discovered through the choosing. The river moves forward not because it knows where it goes, but because it moves. Lesson 4: The ache of loneliness. On the fourth evening, as darkness settled over the monastery, June spoke of the loneliness that haunted his nights. "Master, I feel so alone. Even in crowds, even with friends, there is this emptiness inside. How do I fill it?" The monk was lighting the evening lamps. He lit one, then another, each flame small but steady. He did not respond immediately. Instead, he led June outside to the monastery garden. The night was vast above them. Stars scattered across the darkness like rice across black cloth. "Do you see the stars?" the monk asked. "Yes, master. Each one burns alone in the great emptiness, separated by distances you cannot imagine. And yet," he gestured upward, "do they seem lonely to you?" June looked up. The stars seemed peaceful, ancient, serene in their solitude. "They are alone," the monk continued, "but they are not lonely. Loneliness is not caused by being alone. It is caused by believing you should not be." He turned to face June. "Inside you, There is a space that no person can fill. No lover, no friend, no crowd can enter this space. You feel it as loneliness because you think something is missing. But nothing is missing. That space is not empty. It is open, like the sky between stars. But it hurts, June said quietly. Yes, because you fight it. You try to fill what cannot be filled. You try to escape what cannot be escaped. The monk placed a hand on June's shoulder. The stars do not try to fill the space between them. They simply shine. Your task is not to fill the emptiness, but to stop running from it. In that stillness, you discover it was never empty at all. They stood together in the garden, two figures beneath an infinity of distant light. June felt the space inside him. For a moment, he did not try to fill it. And in that moment, it seemed less like a wound and more like a cathedral. Loneliness is the pain of resisting solitude. When you stop fighting the space within, you find it is not absence but presence, vast, quiet, and whole. Lesson 5, The Prison of Regret. The 5th day found June helping the monk tend the monastery garden. As they worked, June's mind circled back to old mistakes. Master, I am haunted by my past. Things I said, things I did, opportunities one wasted. I lie awake replaying these moments, wishing I could go back and choose differently. How do I escape these regrets? The monk was pruning a small tree, carefully cutting away dead branches. He paused and handed June the shears. Cut this branch, he said, pointing to one that had already been removed. June looked confused. Master, it's already cut. Yes, cut it again. I cannot. It's already gone. Precisely. The monk took back the shears. This is what you try to do with your past. You try to cut what has already been cut. You try to change what has already happened. Tell me, does the tree worry about the branches it has lost? June looked at the prune tree. New growth was emerging near where old branches had been removed. The tree does not regret its lost branches, the monk continued. It does not try to reattach them. It simply grows from where it is now. Your regret is not about the past. It is about your refusal to accept that the past is past. But I made such mistakes, June protested. Yes, and those mistakes are now teaching you. They are no longer mistakes, they are lessons. But you cannot learn from a lesson you keep trying to erase. The monk resumed his pruning, each cut deliberate, final. The branch falls. You cannot unfell it. But from where it fell, new growth emerges. This is not philosophy, this is how trees live. How life lives. Your past is already gone. Your regret is just you, standing in the present, swinging shears at empty air. June held the shears, feeling their weight. How much energy had he spent trying to cut what was already cut? Regret is the exhausting work of trying to change what has already happened. The past is not a problem to be solved. It is a branch already fallen, feeding new growth. Lesson 6, The Comparison Trap. On the 6th morning, the monastery received other visitors, a wealthy merchant and his family making offerings. June watched them with envy. Their fine clothes, their ease, their obvious prosperity. After they left, he spoke to the monk. Master, I see others who have more than me. Better lives, more success, happier relationships. When I compare myself to them, I feel so inadequate. How do I stop measuring myself against others? The monk was in the monastery rock garden, raking patterns in the sand. He handed June a rake. Make the sand like mine, he said. June tried, pulling the rake through the sand. But the patterns never matched exactly. The lines were too wide or too narrow, or curved where the monks were straight. After several frustrating attempts, June stopped. I cannot make them exactly the same. No, the monk agreed, because your hand is not my hand. Your movement is not my movement. Even if I showed you exactly how, your pattern would still be yours. He smoothed the sand and handed the rake back to June. Now make your own pattern. June drew the rake through the sand freely, creating his own design. Came easily, naturally. The monk nodded. Which pattern is better? Mine or yours? They are different. Yes, not better, not worse. different. Each garden needs only to be itself. When you compare your garden to another's, you make yourself gardener of two gardens, yours and the one you imagine theirs to be. This is impossible. You cannot tend two gardens. You can barely tend one. He gestured to the entire rock garden. Look, many patterns, all different, each complete, each exactly as it should be. The sand does not judge itself for not being water. The stone does not envy the tree. Only the human mind creates suffering by demanding that what is should be other than it is. June looked at his pattern in the sand. It was simple, imperfect, and somehow complete. Comparison is the mind's way of rejecting what is. Your life is not inferior to another's. It is incomparable. The flower does not wish to be the mountain. It blooms where it is planted. Lesson 7. The Fear of Death. On the 7th evening, a funeral procession passed near the monastery. June watched with deep unease. That night he could not sleep. In the morning, he found the monk at the edge of the monastery grounds, near the small cemetery where monks were laid to rest. "Master, I am terrified of death. It waits for me, for everyone I love. How can I live knowing everything ends?" The monk was observing a cherry tree near the graves. Its blossoms were falling, scattering across the stones like snow. "Do you see these blossoms falling?" "Yes, master." "Are they dying?" "They are. They have bloomed and now they fall." "And because they fall, was their blooming worthless?" June looked at the carpet of petals, beautiful even in their descent. "No," he said quietly. "These blossoms do not cling to the branch. They do not fear falling. They bloom completely, then release completely. If they clung in fear, they would never become fruit. They would simply wither on the branch, having never fully lived and never fully died." The monk bent and picked up a fallen petal. "Your fear of death is not about dying. It is about never having fully lived. You are like a blossom that clutches the branch, terrified of falling, and so never experiences the freedom of complete blooming." He released the petal. The wind carried it away. Death is not the problem. The problem is living as if you will live forever, then being surprised when you don't. The blossom knows it will fall, so it holds nothing back. It blooms with everything it has. When death comes, there is nothing left unbloomed. This is not sad. This is complete. June watched the petals falling, each one releasing without resistance. "So I should not fear death?" "You will probably still fear it," the monk said with a slight smile. "But perhaps you will stop using that fear as an excuse not to live. Death is not the enemy of life. It is the condition that makes life precious. The blossom falls not because it failed, but because it completed its bloom. Fear death less by living more fully." Lesson 8. The Burden of Expectations. The 8th day brought a letter for June, news from his family pressuring him to return, to meet their expectations, to be what they wanted him to be. "Master," he said, his voice tight with frustration, "everyone expects things of me. My family wants one thing, society demands another. I want something else entirely. How do I satisfy all these expectations?" The monk was watering plants in the monastery. Each plant received water, not the same amount, but what it needed. The bamboo received more, the succulents less. "Tell me," the monk said, "if I give the cactus as much water as the bamboo, what happens?" "The cactus would rot." "And if I give the bamboo as little as the cactus?" "It would wither." So each plant receives what it needs, not what another thinks it should receive. Not what would be fair if all were equal. What it needs. He set down the watering can. Others expect you to be a certain way because they see you as a plant in their garden. They water you according to their plan, their design. But you are not in their garden. You are in your own soil, reaching toward your own sun. "But they will be disappointed," June said. "Yes, they will be disappointed that you are a bamboo when they wanted a rose. But this is not your burden, it is theirs. You cannot bloom as a rose to please them and remain a bamboo for yourself. You can only be what you are. Their disappointment is the gap between their expectation and reality. That gap is their teacher, not your failure." The monk resumed watering. The cactus does not apologize for needing less water. The bamboo does not feel guilty for needing more. They simply accept what they are and receive what they need. Your task is the same. June felt the tightness in his chest ease slightly. How much energy he'd spent trying to be every plant for every gardener. Expectations are other people's plans for your life. You cannot bloom according to another's design. Disappointment is the teacher that shows others who you actually are. Let them have their lesson. Lesson 9. The addiction to distraction. On the 9th morning, June found himself restless during meditation. His mind jumped from thought to thought, never settling, always seeking something to occupy it. Master, I cannot be still. My mind constantly seeks distraction. Things to do, to think about, to occupy myself with. Even here, in this peaceful place, I am restless. Why? The monk was watching a spider weaving its web in the corner of the meditation hall. The spider worked slowly, methodically, moving from one point to the next with complete attention. Watch the spider, the monk said. June watched. The spider never hurried. It never stopped to wonder if it was making the right web. It never abandoned half-finished work to start something new. It simply wove one thread at a time until the web was complete. The spider does not need distraction, the monk observed. Why? Because it is doing what it is doing. It is not thinking about what else it could be doing. It is not escaping the present moment because the present moment is not a prison. He turned to June. You seek distraction because you are trying to escape this moment. And why do you try to escape? Because you have learned that this moment is not enough. That you must always be moving towards something else. Some future satisfaction, some better moment, some place other than here. But isn't ambition good? Shouldn't I always be improving? The spider improves its web by making this thread, now. Not by thinking about a better web. Not by abandoning this thread for an imagined one. Distraction is not the desire to improve. It is the inability to be where you are. The spider continued its work, each movement complete in itself. Your restlessness is not a sign that you should be doing something else. It is a sign that you are not fully present where you are. The cure is not better distractions. The cure is learning to weave your thread, here, now, completely. June sat with this. Even now, his mind wanted to escape the insight to move on to the next thing. He smiled at the irony. Distraction is the mind's refusal to be where it is. The spider teaches presence not through stillness but through complete engagement with what is actually here. Now, Lesson 10. The Shame of Failure. The 10th day found June helping repair a section of monastery fence. He measured poorly, cut wrong, and watched his work fall apart repeatedly. Frustrated and ashamed, he sat down heavily. Master, I am a failure. At my work in the world, at so many things. I try and I fail. The shame is crushing. How do you face failure? The monk examined June's broken fence, then knelt and began collecting the fallen pieces. Tell me, he said, how many times did you fall before you learned to walk? I don't remember. I was a baby. Exactly. You do not remember because you did not count them as failures. You fell, you stood, you fell, you stood. This was not failure, it was learning. When did falling become failure? He laid out the broken fence pieces, studying them. These pieces are not failure. They are information. They show me what does not work, which means they show me what might work. If I call them failure, I learn nothing. If I call them teaching, I learn everything. The monk began to reconstruct the fence differently, using the lesson of what hadn't worked. Shame appears when you believe you should already know what you have not yet learned. But this is impossible. You cannot know what you have not yet discovered. The only way to discover is to try, fail, learn, try again. He looked at June directly. The master has failed more times than the student has tried. This is not a saying, it is literal truth. I have built many fences wrong. This is why I now build them right. Your shame is not wisdom. It is pride disguised as humility. Pride says, I should already be perfect. Humility says, I am learning. Together they rebuilt the fence. This time it held. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is the price of learning. Shame teaches you nothing. The fallen fence teaches you everything. Only pride calls learning failure. Lesson 11, the craving for control. On the 11th day, a storm approached. June watched the dark clouds gather with anxiety. Master, I feel so powerless. Life happens to me. Things outside my control constantly disturb my peace. How do you deal with forces you cannot control? The monk was securing the monastery shutters as wind began to rise. He paused and pointed to a bamboo grove nearby. Watch the bamboo in the wind. June watched. The wind strengthened. The bamboo bent, swayed, moved dramatically, but did not break. Nearby, a stiff old tree creaked and groaned, fighting the wind. Which is more powerful? The monk asked. The bamboo that bends, or the tree that resists? The tree seems stronger, June said. It does not give in. As if in answer, a loud crack echoed across the courtyard. A large branch had snapped from the rigid tree. The bamboo continued its dance, unharmed. The bamboo does not control the wind. It does not stand firm against it. It does not pretend the wind is not there. It bends. This is not weakness, this is wisdom. It knows what it can control, its own flexibility. It releases what it cannot control. The wind. The monk continued securing the shutters. You exhaust yourself trying to control the wind. Other people, circumstances, the future, the past. This is madness. You can no more control these than you can control a storm. But you can learn to bend. You can develop flexibility instead of rigidity. Then when life's winds come, you dance instead of break. The storm hit fully now. Inside, safe and dry, June listened to the wind howl. The bamboo whispered its constant movement. The old tree groaned in resistance. By morning, the storm had passed. The bamboo stood green and whole. The old tree had lost 3 large branches. Control is the illusion that you can make the world obey you. Flexibility is the wisdom of working with what is. The bamboo does not defeat the wind, it survives it by not fighting. Lesson 12, the poison of jealousy. The 12th day brought a celebration. A young monk had achieved a level of meditation that June had struggled with for years. June felt a dark stirring in his chest as others praised the young monk. Master, he confessed later, I am poisoned by jealousy. Others succeed where I fail. They achieve what I want. I feel this ugly thing inside me, and I hate myself for it. The monk was tending a lamp, adding oil to keep the flame alive. Tell me, he said, if I light a second lamp from this one, does this lamp have less flame? No, master. Does this flame diminish because another flame now burns? No. Then why do you believe another's light diminishes yours? The monk lit a second lamp from the first. Both burned equally bright. Jealousy appears when you believe there is not enough light. Not enough success, not enough love, not enough worth. But light is not scarce. When another shines, they do not take your shine. They simply add more light to the world. He looked at June directly. Your jealousy is not about them. It is about you believing you are not enough. You watch their flame and think, if they burn bright, I must burn dim. But this is not how light works. This is not how life works. The monk placed the second lamp beside the first. 2 lamps make more light than 1. This is simple truth. When you feel jealousy, you are choosing to stand in darkness, resenting other lamps, instead of tending your own flame. Tend your flame. Let others tend theirs. Together, we illuminate what was dark. June stared at the 2 flames, dancing independently, yet somehow making each other more visible, more beautiful. Jealousy is the belief that life is scarce and another's gain is your loss. But light is not diminished by more light. Tend your own flame instead of cursing the brightness of others. Lesson 13, the trap of perfectionism. On the 13th morning, June tried to arrange flowers for the meditation hall. He adjusted them repeatedly, never satisfied, seeing only flaws. Master, nothing I do is good enough. I see all the imperfections, all the ways it could be better. This perfectionism paralyzes me. How do you create something perfect? The monk looked at June's flower arrangement, which was, in truth, quite beautiful. He walked to the window and opened it wide. A strong breeze entered, immediately disturbing the carefully arranged flowers. One fell over completely, others shifted, the perfect symmetry destroyed. June's face showed dismay. "Master, I spent an hour on that." The monk smiled. "And now the wind has spent 1 second. Which arrangement do you prefer?" June looked. The wind-touched arrangement was asymmetric, wild, natural, and somehow more alive. The accidental one is, there's something about it. Yes, life touched it. Your arrangement was perfect in your mind and therefore dead. You tried to freeze beauty into form. But beauty is alive, which means it changes, it breathes, it is never finished. The monk adjusted one flower slightly, accepting the chaos rather than fighting it. Perfection is not absence of flaw. Perfection is completion. When you stop trying to make the arrangement perfect and instead make it complete, arranging the flowers fully with care, then releasing your attachment to outcome, then it becomes perfect. Not because it has no flaws, but because it needs nothing added or taken away. He stepped back from the flowers. The Japanese masters of tea ceremony call this wabi-sabi, beauty in imperfection, in impermanence, in incompleteness. Your perfectionism seeks to control beauty, but beauty is not controlled, it is witnessed. June saw the flowers anew, each one perfect in its imperfection, the whole arrangement complete in its incompleteness. Perfectionism is the disease of trying to make life stop moving. Completion is accepting that the thing is done, imperfect, alive, and ready to change. The wind-touched flower is more perfect than the arranged one. Lesson 14, the suffering of attachment. On the 14th day, June's meditation cushion, one he'd grown fond of, was given to a visiting monk who had none. June felt unexpected distress at this small loss. "Master, why does losing even small things hurt? I was attached to that cushion. I know attachment causes suffering, but how do I not become attached?" The monk was raking leaves that had fallen in the courtyard. As he raked them into a pile, more fell. He continued steadily, without frustration. "Do you see me becoming attached to a pile of leaves?" "No, master." "Why not?" "I work to create this pile. I arrange each leaf carefully. Then more fall and destroy my order. Why do I not suffer? Because they're just leaves?" "Yes. And to what are you attached that is not just something? Your cushion was just cloth and fiber. Your possessions are just objects. Your ideas are just thoughts. Your identity is just a story." More leaves fell, scattering the neat pile. Attachment is not wrong, it is inevitable. You will attach. The question is, do you attach with an open hand or a closed fist? I enjoy making a neat pile of leaves. I am attached to the activity, to the moment of creation, but I am not attached to the pile remaining. The leaves teach me every moment. Form appears, form changes, form disappears. This is not suffering, this is reality. He continued raking, incorporating the newly fallen leaves into a new pattern. Your suffering is not caused by attachment. It is caused by demanding that what you are attached to remain unchanged. This is impossible. Everything is already falling leaves. The cushion was never yours, it was here temporarily, like you. When you stopped insisting it be permanent, you could enjoy it while present and release it when gone. June watched the monk work, creating beauty that was immediately undone, then creating again without complaint. Attachment itself does not cause suffering, attachment to permanence does. Hold what you love with an open hand, enjoying its presence, accepting its departure. Everything is falling leaves. Lesson 15, the exhaustion of overthinking. The 15th night, June could not sleep. His mind circled endlessly, analyzing conversations, planning futures, examining problems from every angle. At dawn, exhausted, he found the monk. "Master, my mind never stops. I think about everything, analyze everything, plan for every possibility. I am so tired. How do you quiet the thinking?" The monk was grinding grain to make flour, pushing a heavy stone wheel in circles around and around. "Come, help me grind." June pushed the wheel. It was hard work, physical and demanding. For several minutes, he thought only of the weight of the stone, the rhythm of pushing, the burn in his muscles. When the monk gestured for him to stop, June realized his mind had been quiet. "Where were your thoughts just now?" the monk asked. I wasn't thinking. I was just pushing the stone." "Yes, your mind was occupied with reality, so it had no energy for imagination. Most of your thinking is imagination, imagining futures, reimagining pasts, creating problems that do not exist. This takes enormous energy." The monk gestured to the ground grain. "Thinking is useful for solving actual problems. How do I grind grain? What is the recipe for bread? But you use thinking to solve imaginary problems. What if this happens? What do they think of me? How can I prevent all possible future pain?" These questions have no answers because the problems do not exist. So I should never think ahead? Think ahead when action is required now. Plan the bread when you have the grain. But do not plan the bread you will make in 10 years with grain you do not have, in an oven that does not exist, for people you have not met. This is not thinking, it is suffering. June felt the truth physically. The real work of pushing the stone had been tiring but satisfying. The mental work of endless scenarios was exhausting and pointless. Overthinking is not wisdom, it is imagination masquerading as preparation. The mind that grinds real grain is tired but content. The mind that grinds imaginary problems is exhausted and empty. Lesson 16, the hunger for approval. On the 16th day, several visitors came to the monastery and praised the young monk from earlier while barely acknowledging June's presence. June felt himself shrink, felt the old hunger for recognition, for approval, for mattering in others' eyes. "Master, I hate that I need others' approval. I want to not care what others think, but I do. Their praise fills me. Their neglect empties me. How do you free yourself from this hunger?" The monk was polishing a bronze bell. He worked steadily, making it shine. "Tell me, why do I polish this bell? To make it beautiful? No, I polish it so it rings clearly. The bell's beauty is secondary to its function. The bell does not concern itself with being admired. It concerns itself with producing true sound." He struck the bell. A pure, clear tone rang out across the valley. When this bell rings, it does not wonder if the mountain approves. It does not question if the sound is good enough. It simply rings with complete honesty. This is its nature. The monk set down the polishing cloth. "You hunger for approval because you have forgotten your own sound. You listen only for the echo, how your ring sounds to others. So you change your tone, seeking the echo that brings praise. Soon, you no longer know your true sound. You only know echoes." He struck the bell again. The bell trusts its own ring. It does not need the mountain to validate that it has rung. Approval is just an echo. The echo does not determine if the ring was true. Only you know if you rang with honesty. June sat with this, feeling how much energy he spent listening for echoes, adjusting his ring to please the mountain. "But what if my true sound is not good?" The monk smiled. "Good for what? Good for whom? The bell rings true or false. That is all. You can spend your life trying to ring in ways that please everyone, becoming a false bell, or you can ring true and trust that your honest sound is the only sound you were meant to make. The hunger for approval is the forgetting of your own true sound. Ring honestly without listening for the echo. The bell does not need the mountain to confirm it has rung, it knows." Lesson 17, the resistance to change. On the 17th morning, the monastery underwent changes. Old buildings being repaired, new gardens planted, familiar routines shifting. June felt unsettled. "Master, I dislike change. Just as I become comfortable, everything shifts. Just as I learn the routine, it changes. How do you accept constant change?" The monk was near the river that ran beside the monastery. He gestured for June to watch the water. "Is this the same river you saw yesterday?" "Yes, master. Look closer." June watched the flowing water. "The water is always different. These are not the same drops as yesterday." "Yes, the river is completely new every moment. Yet it is also the same river. How can this be?" June struggled with the paradox. The river is not the water, the river is the flow, the form through which water moves. The water changes constantly, but the river remains. This is not contradiction, this is nature. The monk picked up a stone and dropped it in the water. Ripples spread, changing the river's surface, then faded. You resist change because you confuse yourself with the water. You think you are the water, specific, fixed, needing to remain the same. But you are the river, the form through which life flows, the water of your life, your circumstances, your thoughts, your feelings, your body. All this changes constantly. It must change. It is water. But if everything changes, what remains? What remains is what is watching the water change, the awareness that sees. This does not change because it is not a thing. It is the space in which things appear and disappear. June watched the river, ancient, eternal, never the same twice. Change is not the disruption of life. It is life itself. You are not the water which must change. You are the river, the unchanging form through which change flows. Lesson 18, the weight of responsibility. On the 18th day, news came that June's family needed him. Decisions awaited. Responsibilities pressed. Master, I feel crushed by responsibility. So many people depend on me. So many things I must do, must manage, must handle. How do you carry such weight? The monk was carrying water up to the monastery garden, 2 buckets on a pole across his shoulders. June noticed the monk's step was light despite the load. How much do these buckets weigh? The monk asked. I don't know, master. Quite a lot, I imagine. Then you are imagining weight I am not carrying. He set the buckets down. The buckets weigh what they weigh. Not more, not less. But you carry buckets that do not exist. You carry the bucket from yesterday that you already emptied. You carry tomorrow's bucket that is not yet filled. You carry buckets other people should carry themselves. You carry buckets that only exist in fear, in imagination. He lifted the pole again, demonstrating. I carry these 2 buckets because they are here, they are mine to carry, and carrying them is the task of this moment. I do not also carry the memory of yesterday's buckets. I do not carry the worry of tomorrow's buckets. I carry what is actual, not what is imagined. They walk together, the monk carrying the physical water, June carrying his heavy thoughts. Your responsibilities are real. Some weight is yours to bear. But most of what crushes you is not responsibility. It is the story you tell about responsibility. The guilt, the fear, the what-ifs, the imagined judgments. These add tremendous weight that accomplishes nothing. At the garden, the monk emptied the buckets, watering the plants. See, the buckets are empty now. I do not carry them empty. I set them down. You must learn to empty your buckets and set them down. Carry what is yours now. Not what was yours, or might be yours, or should be someone else's, or exists only in imagination. Responsibility becomes crushing when you carry not just the actual weight, but the imagined weight of every past and future burden. Carry only what is yours, only what is now. Empty the bucket, set it down. Lesson 19, the ache of unfulfilled dreams. On the 19th evening, June spoke of dreams he'd abandoned, paths not taken, the life he'd imagined versus the life he'd lived. Master, I have failed to become what I wanted to be. My dreams remain unfulfilled. I look at my life and see all that I am not. How do you live with unfulfilled dreams? The monk was observing the sunset, brilliant colors spreading across the sky, changing moment by moment. Tell me, what did this morning's sunrise dream of becoming? June looked confused. I don't understand. The sunrise appeared. It was beautiful. Now it is gone. Did it fail because it did not continue? Did it dream of being something other than a sunrise? Now the sunset appears, different but equally beautiful. Is it a failed sunrise or a successful sunset? The monk turned to face June. Your dreams were sunrise dreams. You are no longer the sunrise moment. You are here now in the sunset moment. The sunrise did not fail, it completed. It became the day you lived. Now you stand in a new moment, grieving that you are not still in the morning. The colors deepened, shifted from gold to red to purple. You say your dreams are unfulfilled, but what if they were seeds, not destinations? What if they grew into something you do not recognize because you are still looking for the flower you imagined while standing in the shade of the tree that grew? June thought of his abandoned dreams. How many of them had, in truth, transformed into aspects of who he now was? The sunset does not wish to be the sunrise. It blooms in its own way. Your current life is not a failed version of your dream life. It is the life that grew from those dreams, changed by reality, shaped by time, becoming something your younger self could not imagine. The last light faded. Stars appeared. The sunset does not mourn that it is not morning. It gives way to night, which has its own beauty. This is not loss, this is sequence. Your unfulfilled dreams fulfilled their purpose. They moved you forward. Now you are here. This is not failure. This is arrival. Unfulfilled dreams are not failures. They are seeds that grew into forms you did not expect. You are not a failed version of your dream. You are what your dreams became after meeting reality. Lesson 20. The pain of betrayal. On the 20th day, June received news that a friend had spread false words about him, betraying his trust. The pain was sharp and fresh. Master, I have been betrayed. Someone I trusted has hurt me deliberately. This pain is unlike others, it cuts deeper. How do you forgive betrayal? The monk was mending his robe, old fabric, torn in places, carefully stitched. This robe is 40 years old, he said. It has torn many times. See these patches? Each one marks where the fabric failed. June saw the many patches, different fabrics and colors. Do you think the robe betrayed me by tearing? No, master. Fabric wears out. That is its nature. Yes. And do you think people betray you by acting according to their nature? But betrayal is wrong. It shouldn't happen. Shouldn't. The monk smiled slightly. Trees should not lose leaves. Water should not become ice. People should not act from fear, from selfishness, from their wounds and limitations. He continued stitching. Betrayal hurts because you believed someone was other than they are. You gave them a role in your story. The trustworthy friend, the loyal companion. When they acted according to their actual nature, which included capacity for betrayal, you experienced this as broken promise. But they made no promise except in your imagination. So I should trust no one? No. Trust wisely. And when trust is broken, see clearly. The fabric tore. This shows me the fabric's true strength. Now I know. I do not hate the fabric for being what it always was. I patch the tear or I make a new robe. But I do not carry the torn place like a wound. He held up the mended robe. See? Patches and tears. This robe has been betrayed by its own fabric many times. Yet it still keeps me warm. The patches do not weaken it, they show its history. Your betrayal is a tear. Mend it or move on. But do not bleed forever from a cut that has already happened. Betrayal hurts because reality did not match your imagination of another person. They showed you who they are. This is information, not tragedy. Mend the tear or make a new robe, but do not mourn forever that fabric tears. Lesson 21. The search for meaning. On the 21st and final day, June sat with the accumulated weight of all his questions. Master, I have learned much, yet one question remains. What is the meaning of all this? Of problems and suffering, of joy and loss, of this life that seems both significant and meaningless? What is the point? The monk was silent for a long time. Then he stood and led June outside to the monastery bell, the same bell he had polished days before. Strike the bell, he said. June struck it. A clear tone rang out, spread across the valley, faded into silence. What was the meaning of that sound? June hesitated. To call to prayer? No one came to pray. Strike it again. June struck it again. The same clear tone, the same spreading, the same fading. What was the meaning this time? I don't know. Exactly. The monk smiled. The bell does not ring for meaning. It rings because it is struck. The sound is not trying to mean something, it is simply being itself. A bell, struck, ringing, fading, complete. He gestured to the valley, the mountains, the sky. What is the meaning of that mountain? Of that cloud? Of the river that flows without purpose? Of the tree that grows without asking why? They just are. Yes, they just are. And in that simple being, they are complete. They do not suffer from meaninglessness because they do not demand meaning. They exist. They change. They eventually cease. This is not meaningless. This is existence. The monk rang the bell himself, letting the sound wash over them. You search for meaning because you fear that without it, you are not important. But importance to what? To whom? The bell does not need to be important. It needs only to ring clearly when struck. Your life does not need cosmic meaning. It needs only to be lived completely, honestly, present to itself. June felt something release in his chest. So there is no meaning? I did not say that. I said, stop searching for meaning and be meaning. The bell searching for meaning makes no sound. The bell ringing, that is meaning appearing moment by moment. Your life, fully lived, present, complete, that is meaning. Not found, but created through being. The last tone faded into silence. The meaning is in the ringing, not in some purpose the ringing serves. The return. 21 days had passed. June prepared to leave the monastery. His journey down the mountain awaited. He found the old monk sweeping leaves, as he had been on the first day. Master, I came seeking solutions to my problems. You gave me none. Yet somehow, the problems seem different now. Smaller, or perhaps I am larger. The monk continued sweeping. Your problems have not changed. A single thing has changed. You stopped trying to solve them with the part of you that creates them. He paused, leaning on his broom. You came here with a mind full of problems. I showed you that mind creates problems faster than it solves them. The thinking that makes problems cannot unmake them. It can only make more problems about the problems. This is the wheel you were trapped in. June nodded slowly, understanding. The lessons I showed you were not solutions. They were mirrors. In each one, you saw your mind at work. Worrying, grasping, resisting, comparing, regretting. Once you see the mind clearly, you are no longer trapped inside it. You are the awareness watching the mind, not the mind itself. A leaf fell. The monk swept it away. The mind that seeks solutions creates problems. The mind that sees clearly is already free. June bowed deeply. No words seemed adequate. As he walked down the mountain path, he felt the weight he'd carried up was somehow absent. Not solved, not fixed, simply seen for what it was. A bird called from the trees. June heard it completely, without needing it to mean something. His mind began its usual patterns, planning the return, worrying about the future, and he watched these patterns arise with a slight smile. Old habits, not problems, just the mind doing what minds do. In the valley below, his life awaited. The same circumstances, the same challenges. But he was not the same person who had climbed up 21 days ago. He paused and looked back at the monastery, barely visible now through the mist. The old monk was surely still sweeping, moving with that same unhurried patience, tending what was in front of him without demand that it be other than it was. June turned and continued down the path. The way forward was not different from the way he had always walked, but his walking had changed. He placed each foot with more care, felt the earth beneath him more completely, noticed the moment he was in rather than the moment he was heading toward. Problems would come. This was certain. The difference now was that he knew problems are not solved by fixing them, but by seeing them clearly. And in that clear seeing, they transform from walls into doorways, from obstacles into teachers. The mountain had taught him what the valley could not. That peace does not come from resolving every difficulty, but from changing the mind that perceives difficulty as wrong. The path stretched ahead. Behind and within, the monk's final words echoed like a bell. The mind that seeks solutions creates problems. The mind that sees clearly is already free. June walked on, carrying nothing, arriving nowhere, complete. May these words serve those who carry burdens. May they point toward the peace that comes not from solving, but from seeing. The old monk continues his sweeping, whether we climb the mountain or not. The teaching is always present, waiting only for us to be still enough to hear it. The bell rings, the sound fades, nothing needs to be added, all is complete.